Alright everyone, today we start with poll analysis. I think that it's important because we're beginning to see a wild deviation between certain polling firms and thus aggregates to a lesser extent in battleground states and in national polling. Right now Trump is above 45 and rising. In national polling he's inching his way up towards 46% approval. There is, of course, the following element, and this would explain why in a state like maybe even Ohio, which leans red, Trump could perceivedly be behind. And that's because just because someone approves of Trump does not necessarily mean that they won't vote for Biden, now does it? They might approve more of Biden, they might have positive views of both. Someone may disapprove of Trump but still end up voting for him because they disapprove of Biden more. And so those numbers, while they're meaningful, don't necessarily mean the whole story. You've also got to understand that demographics are shifting in many states. Maine is less blue than it used to be, certainly certain districts. Parts of the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes region, Wisconsin was fairly solidly blue a couple of cycles ago. Now it's competitive. Pennsylvania, same thing. I personally do not choose to believe in the fantasy that many Democrats seem to have, that Ohio or Georgia, for instance, are in play. Arizona's the closest thing that they have to a potential take. That is something that's been fairly red. It's been moving more towards swing state lean red status. Biden may very well get Arizona. In fact, it wouldn't particularly surprise me. Positing that he gets Texas, positing that he gets Ohio, you'd need a landslide election. Now, in most of those states, they're not expanding mail-in access. That's one wild card in this election. Really, actually, there are two wild cards in this election. Number one is mail-in ballots. In some competitive states, they're mailing everyone ballots. We've already got funny shit going on with these. We've had numerous instances over the last week where they're finding ballots in dumpsters, they're finding ballots on the side of the road and stuff like that. There are shenanigans going on. I hate to tell you this, but in certain states, there will be election fraud. By the way, why aren't the Democrats talking about this? How do you know that it's not some Trump fan that hates mail-in voting? How do you know that it's not some Trump-supporting USPS member who hates the idea of mail-in votes being counted en masse, is worried about ballot stuffing, and is tossing them out of the U-Haul, of the USPS truck every day out of sheer malice or something like that? I thought that voter suppression was something the Democrats normally talked about. Well, now we have actual evidence of it on a reasonably large scale, sometimes 1,000 or a few hundred ballots, and they're not talking about it at all. I find that mysterious. And the other one is the enthusiasm gap. Donald Trump has the advantage of having the highest in-party enthusiasm of any modern president. It is higher than Reagan, it's higher than Obama, it's higher than Bush, it's higher than any of them. Of all the modern presidents, if you look back as long as they can count, he has the highest in-party enthusiasm. Biden has lower enthusiasm in the general calculated sense than Clinton did. In 2016, with Trump having less overall interior enthusiasm, there was a larger never Trump element at that time. With Clinton having a bit more enthusiasm, although mediocre, even then there was a 2.2 point swing. 2.2 is the differentiation between the final poll results and the national polling average as it was on the last day before the election. So you have the polled amount. Trump gained 2.2 on top of that nationally. It will be larger this time. Whether voter fraud in some of these states, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, is able to swing those elections in favor of the Democrats remains to be seen. Left-wing pundits are already prepping the population for fraud. They're already prepping people for a dirty election. They're saying, well, on election night, don't be surprised if Trump wins in a landslide because Democrats will outsizedly choose the mail-in option. That's pretty skeevy when you bring it up. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I would think that Trump fans supposedly is being skewed older as people that would be more likely to have problems from COVID. If they're really worried, I think they're the ones that would choose mail-in ballots. And I think that there will be a differential. I think that you can look for at least a 2-point, probably a 3-point swing in the final results. If I tack, in an arbitrary fashion at least, 3 points onto Trump's results in the battleground states, he's won Florida. He retains Ohio and North Carolina fairly easily. He doesn't lose Texas or Georgia or anything. It's a dead heat in Arizona. That one will be really close. He probably loses Michigan and Pennsylvania, but manages to retain Wisconsin and flip Minnesota. he's won at that point. He has the votes. He might be capable of challenging in New Hampshire as well at that point, even Virginia. We could see an electoral map where Trump ends up with similar amounts of electoral votes, but different states. Picks up Minnesota but loses Wisconsin. Manages to lose Arizona but picks up Virginia or New Hampshire or something. You could see that happen as well. But there's a wildly deviating numeric between the national polling as far as Trump's approval, people who think he's doing a good job, which is at this point a little bit higher than Obama was, and the Battleground state polling. I think that many of those polls are flawed. The methodology that appears to be employed, especially among more local and regional groups conducting polls, appears to heavily oversample Democrats. This was, by the way, a problem in 2016. There was an oversampling of more than 2 points. There was a significant oversampling of Democrats in a systemic manner. Even the aggregate was dragged several points to the side. If we assume similar numerics, and I don't see any reason not to, because there's a lag between reality and perception within polling, election after election, Trump will breeze through this. I think that's likely to happen. I think that his approval will continue to rise generally. He'll probably around 46 or so. There's got to be some sort of ceiling before the debates. There are plenty of people who won't make up their minds till the third debate is over. You late breakers, I think, will probably go for Trump anyway, for the incumbent. If they haven't decided that they hate Trump after 4 years of nonstop he's Hitler, I can't imagine what's going to change their mind. Many of them also, since they're not enthusiastic, they may just stay home. Again, you do have the expanded mail-in ballots in certain states. That's a wild card. You have the enthusiasm gap. Generally speaking, though, with unemployment ticking down, with GDP growth ticking up, with the economy generally stable, with coronavirus in most states becoming a back burner issue, all signs point to Trump having the advantage going into the debates. I believe he will pick up steam thereafter because I believe it is likely that his opponent will not be able to outmatch him. That's just my gut instinct. That's about all. Peace out.